Welcome everybody. I am Dr. Manar lecturer of medical parasitology. Today I would like to talk about Pentastomida, which is called tongue worms. In this lecture, you will be able to learn taxonomy, morphology, biology, development, life cycle, and the pathogenesis of Pentastomida. Let's start with taxonomy. Subclass Pentastomida, order Parocephalida, family Parocephalidae, Linguatulidae, and Armilliferidae. About morphology, the pentastomid body is elongated, usually tapering toward its posterior end and often showing segmentation, forming numerous annuli. It is divided into an anterior forebody and a posterior hind body, which is bifurcated at its tip in some species. Their exoskeleton contains chitin, which is sclerotized around the mouth opening and accessory genitalia. The presence of two pairs of sclerotized hooks in the mouth region. The hooks are single in some species and appear to be double in others, with an accessory hook-like protrusion of the cuticle. Hooks are manipulated by powerful muscles and are used to tear and embed the mouth region into host tissues. The body cuticle in some species also has circular rows of simple spines. Annuli may overlap enough to make the abdomen look serrated. There usually are transverse rows of cuticular gland with pores, which function in regulation of water and mineral balance in hemolymph. Muscles are arthropodal in nature, being striated and segmentally arranged, and the only sensory structure so far recognized are papillae, especially on the cephalothorax. And the digestive system is simple and complete, with the anus opening at the posterior end of the abdomen. The mouth is held open by its sclerotized lining. In this picture, you can see the oral opening with hooks on each side, with higher magnification view of hooks. About reproductive anatomy, males are usually smaller than females. Males have a single tubular testis, two in Linguatula species, which occupies 1/3 to 1/2 of the body cavity. The testis is continuous with a seminal vesicle, which in turn connects to a pair of ejaculatory organs. These each have a duct extending to a terminal penis that fit into a dilator organ, which is usually sclerotized, serving as an intermittent organ in some species, as a dilator and guide for the penis in others. The male genital bore is mid-ventral on the anterior abdominal segment, near the mouth, while in females, a single ovary extends nearly the length of the body cavity. It may bifurcate at its distal end to become two oviducts. These unite to form a uterus. Oviducts and uterus usually are coiled in the body. The uterus terminates as a short vagina that opens through the female gonopore. And the females mate once, while males may be polygamous. This picture showing the reproductive system of both male and female. Male reproductive system consists of testes, seminal vesicle, vas deferens, and male genital wall, while female reproductive system consists of ovary, oviduct, uterus, and vagina. After taxonomy and morphology, let's talk about biology. Adult pentastomids feed on host tissue fluids and blood cells. They appear to stimulate a strong immune response, but they also are long-lived, so to survive, they must evade their host's defenses. Pentastome frontal and subparietal glands elaborate armillate secretion, secretory-excretory products, which is poured over the entire cuticular surface and protects the parasites from antibody action. Host cells get caught up in this covering of secretory-excretory products, reducing the inflammatory response that occurs each time a parasite molts. Vertebrate lungs produce a complex protein and phospholipid substance that acts as a surfactant, coating the alveoli and regulating activity of macrophages. And in at least one Pentastomia species, secretory-excretory composition is quite similar to that of its host's own lung surfactant. About development of egg of pentastomids, female may produce several million fully embryonated eggs, which pass up their host's trachea, are swallowed, and then pass out with feces. Intact eggs appear to be surrounded by two shell membranes, an outer thin membrane and an inner thick one. The inner layer consists of 3 layers. A characteristic of pentastomid eggs is the facet, a permanent funnel-shaped opening through the inner membrane complex, with an inner opening extended toward the larva. This picture showing pentastomid eggs. About the larva, an oval-tailed creature with 4 stumpy legs, each with 1 or 2 retractable claws. The claws are manipulated by a combination of muscle fibers and an inner hydraulic mechanism. A penetration organ is located at the interior end of the body. This is composed of a median spur and 2 lateral pointed forks. Together with the clawed legs, these structures can tear through tissues of an intermediate host. And the gut undergoes rather morphological changes during development. These changes are associated with different larval and adult habitats. In embryos, the esophagus doesn't reach the midgut, but that connection is made between the first and fourth, which is infective stage larva. In juveniles, the mouths are mature, is inside the mouth. The foregut-midgut connection is a cardiac valve. A ring-like fold is present around the tongue, and sucking musculature is well developed. These anatomical features have been interrupted as aids to pricking lung capillaries in their definite host and to sucking blood. These two pictures showing on the left side non-encysted mature Armillifer larva attached to the abdominal surface of a human diaphragm, while on the right side encysted Armillifer larva on the surface of the liver. The cyst contains a C-shaped larva. Let's talk about life cycle of pentastomids. All pentastomids mature in reptiles. Intermediate hosts are various fishes, amphibians, reptiles, insects, and mammals. Typically, after ingestion by ectothermic vertebrate, larvae hatch and penetrate the intestine and migrate randomly in the body, finally metamorphosing into nymphs. Nymphs are infective to a definitive host when eaten by the latter. They penetrate the host's intestine and bore into its lung, where they mature. A definitive host that eat an egg can also serve as intermediate host, but the parasites can't migrate to the lung and mature to adult. This diagram showing life cycle of tongue worms or pentastomids. Number 1. Adult worm and infective larvae, and human ingest raw cooked snake or lizard containing adult worms and infective larvae. 2. Humans ingest eggs on vegetation or in water. After ingestion of infective eggs hatch and larvae penetrate intestinal wall and encapsulate and invade mesenteric lymph nodes and visceral organs. Then development of infective larvae, and human ingests the flesh of intermediate hosts contain number 3 infective larvae, then become adult in respiratory tract or nasal passage. Let's talk about Parocephalus species. Definitive host snakes, intermediate hosts other domestic animals, and main habitat lung of definitive host. On hatching, larvae penetrate the duodenal mucosa and work their way to the abdominal cavity. Complete penetration can be accomplished within an hour after an egg is swallowed. After wandering about for 7 or 8 days, larvae molt and become encapsulated in host tissue. Subsequent nymphal stages are divided of larval characteristics. Molts 5 more times, gradually increasing in size and becoming segmented. Sexes can be differentiated after the 5th molt. After the 6th molt, nymphae become heavily encapsulated and dormant. When eaten by a snake, nymphs are activated, quickly penetrate the snake's intestinal wall, and usually pass directly into its lung, feed on blood and tissue fluid, and mature. About Linguatula serrata species. Adults live in the nasopharyngeal region of mammals. Cats, dogs, fox, and other carnivores are normal hosts of this cosmopolitan parasite. Adults embed their forebody into the nasopharyngeal mucosa, feeding on blood and fluids. Females live at least 2 years and produce millions of eggs. Eggs about 90 by 70 micron with an outer shell that wrinkles when dry. Eggs exit the host in nasal secretions or if swallowed with feces. When swallowed by an intermediate host, The four-legged larvae hatch in the small intestine, penetrate the intestinal wall, and lodge in tissues, especially in lungs, liver, and lymph nodes. The nymphal instars develop with infective stages becoming surrounded by host tissues. When eaten by a definitive host, infective nymph either attach in the upper digestive tract or quickly travel there from the stomach, reaching esophagus. Females begin egg production in about 6 months. About pathogenesis of Pentastomida. There are two types of Pentastomiasis in humans. Visceral Pentastomiasis result when eggs are eaten and nymph develop in various internal organs, and nasopharyngeal Pentastomiasis results when nymphs that are eaten locate in the nasopharynx. Both types are common in some parts of the world. Let's talk about visceral Pentastomiasis. Several species of Pentastomida have been found encysted in humans. The most commonly involved species is Armillifer armillatus, which has been reported from liver, spleen, lungs, eyes, and mesenteries of people in, among other places, Africa, the Philippines, Java, and China. Other reported species are Linguatula serrata, Armillifer moniliformis, and Parocephalus species. Most infections cause few symptoms and therefore go undetected. In fact, most recorded cases are found at autopsy after death from other causes. However, infection of the spleen, liver, or other organs causes some tissue destruction. Ocular involvement may cause vision damage. Visceral infection may sensitize a person, resulting in an allergy to subsequent infection. Host response to nymph is often highly inflammatory, although little pathological response is in definitive reptilian hosts. Dead nymphs are often calcified and are sometimes detected in X-ray films. Others begin a slow deterioration, causing a mononuclear cell response with abscess and granuloma formation. Experimentally produced heavy infections in rodents may kill them, indicated that visceral Pentastomiasis may be more important in humans medicine than usually is thought. About nasopharyngeal Pentastomiasis. When nymphs of Linguatula serrata invade the nasopharyngeal spaces of humans, they cause a condition usually called halazon, but also known as Manar syndrome or nasopharyngeal linguatulosis. In Sudan, it is known as Manar syndrome. In Lebanon, the disease is linked in the popular mind with eating of raw or undercooked sheep or goat liver or lymph nodes. In Sudan, it is linked with ingestion of various raw visceral organs of sheep, goats, cattle, or camels. And a few minutes to half an hour or more often after eating, there is discomfort and a prickling sensation deep in the throat. Pain may extend to the ears. Edematous congestion of the faces, tonsils, larynx, stichian tubes, nasal passages, and lips is sometimes marked. Nasal and lacrimal discharge, episodic sneezing and coughing, dyspnea, dysphagia, and dysphonia, and frontal headache are common. The complication may include abscess in the auditory canals, facial swelling or paralysis, and sometimes asphyxia and death. This condition was suspected to be caused by the trematodes, Fasciola hepatica and Dicrocelium dendriticum, and also by leeches. However, recovery of Linguatula nymph from the nasal passage and throats of patients in India, Turkey, Greece, Morocco, and Lebanon indicates that this species is the main cause of the condition in these areas. It is possible that the parasites can become mature if not removed or lost. Epidemiology of this condition depends on culture food pattern, in which nymphs are ingested in raw or undercooked visceral organ, liver or mesenteric lymph nodes of domestic herbivores. And these are references if you want to have a look. Hoping that the lecture was useful for you all. Thanks.